Okay, I would like to, first of all, I want to recognize some people real quick and then we're going to get into some awards, okay? We don't want this to be a marathon. You know, I've never liked marathons on banquet nights either. We want to get to our speaker. So, I'd like to recognize the 6 students that I brought with me this weekend because they not only learned a lot, but they worked a lot. Yeah. Their names are, I don't know if they're around the way, but Jennifer Mason, Cassie DeVore, Max, raise your hand, Max Puckett, Cade St. Ledger, Owen Traub, the guy with the tie on, Andon Cartwright. Those guys did a good job this weekend. We appreciate that, okay? Also, some just quick thanks, and I apologize if I forgot somebody that's helped in the cause here, but, you know, again, we got some awards in that respect too, but special thanks go to the guy right over here, Don Ratliff, who's been amazing as MC, and so much behind the scenes work leading up to this. Same way with David Knight, the IT's master of IT, David Knight. Okay, he's worked with me for months on this project. Both of these guys have, including getting the hotel ready. Casey Quinlan's another guy that's been helping me in so much, and okay. My close friend and JFK Historical Group guy, Ed Tatro, has helped me so much with terms of speakers. Richard Marrero, recent grad of EIU, is our assistant director. Okay, then I'm going to get right into my next award. He'll probably be surprised about this, but we're trying to award some certificates of appreciation to people, and this guy's been, well, he's the founding member of the JFK Historical Group. In fact, he coined the term JFK Historical Group. My best friend, good friend, Walt Boyce. Come on up, Walt. You're going to get something tonight. Walt's got a bum knee. It might take him a while to get up here. Walt, if I'd known you sat in front, right?
I told you, man, don't put me on the spot. Thank you, man. It's a pleasure. I love this. Okay. I wish I did more research.
No long speech. Okay. Again, I've got one more certificate of appreciation, then I'm going to get Don Ratliff up here to continue. In fact, I'm going to get Don Ratliff up here right now because he's getting one right now. No one deserves a certificate of appreciation more than Don, so give him a big hand. Ladies and gentlemen, Don Ratliff will be taking over.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I've got another number of certificates, but rather than wait for everybody to come up, I'm just going to read their name, and if you would, please come and get your certificate. But we want to acknowledge you and thank you for what you've done. Richard Marrero. Chad Weaver. Robert Little. Chris Milligan. David Knight. Can you take that back to David? And David Denton. Where'd you go, David? Oh, here you go. Whoever tightened this has a really good grip. All right, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, how was dinner? Was that pretty good? Are your tummies full? Are you ready for some action? You ready for some awards? You ready for some more speakers? All right, that's why you paid, right? It wasn't for the dinner. All right, ladies and gentlemen, where is Chris Milligan? Oh, okay, just a minute. Okay, let me get the award.
Okay. Well, I wasn't supposed to do this at first, but I talked my way into it. You know, first off, thank you all for being here. You know, and we are a community, and isn't it nice to see all of us together? And Judy's going to get an award, okay? And you know, I got her book from Ed Haslam, and we're working on it and looking at it. And then one day, I'm sitting in my office, and the phone rings, and it says, "Hi, I'm Judy." I'd never talked to her before. I just talked to Ed Haslam, you know. And I says, "Oh, okay." And she was calling from Sweden and whatnot, and I didn't really know her, you know. And then later on, we got her book out, and you know, I asked her to come to the States to sign copies. She wouldn't do that. Finally, when her paperback came out, I says, well, I was thinking about it, and I says, how about coming to Canada? She says, okay. She came to Canada. And I says, well, when do we want to do it? And I says, you know, the book's going to be coming out September, October, something like that. She says, well, we'll do it on Lee's birthday. And so I say, great. And I don't really think about that because I'm just happy that she said yes. And so, you know, she asked me to make a cake for, you know, for Lee's birthday with his hands up like that with the, you know, the handcuffs. And so we do this event in Toronto, and at the end of the event, she's cutting the cake, and she cuts right through Lee's handcuffs. And at that time, it just came to me and it says, wow, this is a political act. Here, you know, this lady is celebrating Lee Harvey Oswald's birthday. We aren't supposed to like him, you know, and she's professing her love for him. And so, you know, it was quite incredible because the Canadian press gave us all kinds of things. She was on the Canadian CNN, was on the front pages of the newspapers, but none of it translated here at all, okay? And then, you know, we started to celebrate Lee Harvey Oswald's birthday, and then 2013, Trine Day brought her here to Dallas. And I had arranged ahead of time for a vendor at the Lancer conference to have her book. And so I trot up to the Lancer conference with Judy, and they really aren't that happy to see her, which was sad. But we took her into the vendor thing where the books were at, and just a huge crowd came around and was talking to her and everything. But the powers that be there didn't really want us there, so we left. And I had some tickets for the other conference in town. I mean, why is there always two conferences? Well, one's controlled, one's uncontrolled, but we won't get into that. But took her to the Kappa conference, and they were kind of happy to see her, but they didn't really want her to stick around. So you know what Judy did? She went to Arlington, Texas, and rented a senior citizen center, and she got Dick Russell to come. We gave her some books, and that's where this particular conference really started, okay? And then the very next year, we were doing one, and Judy gets to the hotel, and Lord have mercy. I mean, this was a major hotel. The phone system went down. I mean, it didn't work, you know? And Judy was thinking, what's going on here? Finally, I get there about 2 days later. Phones still aren't working. Okay, finally I'm there a couple hours, and then the phones start working. And then after a while, I turn around, and there's this big guy, you know? And I was very happy to see him, okay? Because he says, how can I help? And Lord have mercy, he's been a big help. So Mr. Radcliffe, you have something to do here.
I do. I was starting to think I was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, but I'm not. I haven't done anywhere near what our recipient has done to deserve this. And I want to let you know a little bit. So Judy's going to be receiving our Lifetime Achievement Award from the JFK Historical Group. And it's really special because JFK Historical has never done this before. So this will be the inaugural Lifetime Achievement Award. And what I want to tell you about Judy that I haven't already told you about her, and you already know though, is she didn't start out to be what she has ended up to be. She was just a young girl that wanted to find a cure for cancer. Her grandmother had died, and she wanted to find a cure for cancer. She had the brains, she had the interest, she had the passion and the motive to want to do it. And she got sidetracked, and she ended up down this dark rabbit hole doing things that what young girl could have imagined. But despite what she has endured, and she has endured so much, I can't even imagine. I talk to her on a regular basis, and what I hear from her on a weekly basis would have crushed me years ago. But she's kind of like the Energizer Bunny. She just keeps going because she has a mission. She has a big why. And the one thing that I wanted to say that, now this is going to sound strange, but I want you to listen because I think it's important. Of the things that I've learned from Judy Baker in the 8 years or so that I've known her, the most important thing that I've learned from her is love. Think about it. She only knew Lee for what, 7, 8 months? And yet, even after that short period of time, the love that they developed in that period of time, she has endured things that no person should have to. But she is on a mission to clear his name. And she is not going to give up. She will continue to her dying day, working to clear his name and to find justice for JFK. And so that's the most important thing that I've found or learned from her during our working together is what love means. And it's kind of coincidental. It was late in life that I learned that also from my father. I learned that love isn't flowers, it's not chocolate, it's not kind words. Love is a verb. It's what we do for those that we love. And I can't imagine doing more for Lee Oswald than what Judy has done already, and she's not done yet. But I want you to think about that. Love is a verb. And I gave Judy a pin a number of years ago. I think it was actually when I first met her. It said, live love. Be an example of love in everything that you do. So Judy, I think it's time to bring you up here, if we can get you up here. Chris, if you'll help. She can outrun him, really. She can't see, but she can run. Come on up, Chris. Come on up, Chris. So let me read what it says. It says 2022 JFK Historical Group Lifetime Achievement Award presented to Judith Very Baker in recognition of your tireless efforts while always searching to uncover the truth. Judy Baker, on behalf of the JFK Historical Group, the JFK Assassination Group, the JFK Project, and all of us here, we present you with this Lifetime Achievement Award and thank you for all that you've done and all that you will continue to do. We love you. Speech.
Thank you. Thank you, God. Love you. I love you. Thank you. God bless you. I can't see you. My eyes are lousy, but my heart is full. Thank you. Goodbye. And wow.
Short people. One more time for Judith Very Baker. right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not really sure how to introduce this man. Those of you who know him, Uncle Ed, but those of you who know him know the complexity of introducing this man. I looked at his bio that was on the JFK Historical website, and I would use up all of his time if I was to read that, and I'm not going to read it because I want to have him have some time to share his words and his thoughts. But those of you who may not know him, I'll give you a little background about him. He taught high school English in Quincy, Massachusetts for 38 years. He's the author of many research articles pertaining to JFK and RFK assassination conspiracy. His work is acknowledged and footnoted in many JFK assassination books. He is not just a researcher, he lived the history. He was at Clay Shaw's trial. He knows many of the people that we study and we learn and we talk about. He knew them, he had conversations with them, he interacted with them. He was their friend. And when I first started coming to the JFK conferences, I would always see Ed out in the area, the lobby area, and he'd be having a table with just people surrounding him, wanting to hear whatever it was that he had to share. And he was so gracious and wanted to be able to share what he knew, what he had experienced with people, to give them a fuller, richer, better understanding of what the JFK assassination was all about. He's an amazing man. We've had a lot of fun through the years. I've teased him. I created an award, or actually a measure of time, called the Tatro, and it was because whenever Ed would give it a little bit of time, he would always stretch it just a little bit more. But I was always happy to do it when I could because he always had something important to say. Ed, are you ready to come up here? Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the one, the only, the inimitable Ed Tatro.
No pressure at all. Wait a minute, I'm not a giraffe.
Is that about right?
I used to be 5'11", now I'm 5'10", you know. Shrinking. All right, give me a second here to, I got two piles here and I got to try to separate them. Actually, I got three piles. This is not conducive to, this thing's slippery, wait a minute. Shh. Get rid of that, might help. All right, let me get rid of this part first. I really don't know how much time I have, but I don't have enough. I finished this, it took me months to write this article. It's, I think, something like 51,000 words, and they're giving me, like a half an hour. And so I'll do the best. But before I begin the meat and potatoes of the actual article, I have a shtick to do, which is something I have learned. A teacher is one who takes his students on an experience they couldn't have taken themselves. So good evening, class. First thoughts, my job, George Carlin used, and I was always compared to Carlin. I worked over the Suez Canal while he made millions. But basically he used to say, as a comedian, his job is to get you to dig me. Okay. As a teacher, my job is to get you to, at least mentally, if not verbally, say, I hadn't thought of that. I didn't know that. So that's my job. And so I'll do the best I can here. But I want to start off with, I don't know, this microphone is here, and I'm over here. Watch me break everything. Something fell. Jesus. All right. That's Geezus. Okay. First of all, I'm not known for my diplomacy, and the world we are living in now. I can tell you this, I've been retired for 12 years from school, and it's a good thing I'm out, because with smartphones and everything and the polarization of the world,
I'd be on CNN and Fox being crapped on within 2 days. Okay? But I want to first of all thank David Denton for taking care of me. He's done a tremendous job, and the intensity and the sincerity cannot be forgotten. I want to thank a few people. My best friend Rick Russo, who knows more about the medical evidence than David Lifton, Harry Livingston, Will Law, and Doug Horn combined. I want to thank people that are not known well. Bill Cheslock, he's probably on Zoom. Jonathan Burak, my proofreader, and a guy in Kansas City named Terry Moore. I think it's important to mention the little people that you would never meet. So based on that, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy realist. And we'll go from there. And I also realize that most people do not believe in freedom of speech. They believe in freedom of my speech, which is why we're in trouble. They don't believe in disagreeing and still accepting somebody else's view. It's believe me or I'll hit you with a friggin' hammer, okay? I want to go through a couple of things here. My mother and father were both licensed practical nurses at Boston State Hospital, which is an insane asylum, okay? Again, you're not supposed to say this today. It was a nut house. And I worked there for 3 summers during college time. And I used to cut hedges, mow lawns, drive trucks, pick up corpses, bring patients back when they escaped, and all kinds of things like that. And there was a woman always there, and she had a flowery dress, ugly as hell, and she used to lift it up. She had no underpants. She'd lift it up and show her hoo-ha. And she'd look at me. I'd be mowing the lawn, and I'd hear a noise, and I'd turn around, and there she was. What was that? Something? What happened? Something fell. And she said, "Get down! Get down!" And I go, WTF, And I said, "What's the matter?" She says, "I have puppies in my throat, and I'm trying to get them to go down." Now, my father being the LPN, something fell. What did I do, break something?
No, I just got to put
Oh. All right, here we go. And I'd say, "What's the matter?" "I got puppies in my throat." So my father realized it, and he gave us sugar pills. Said, "This dissolves puppies." And so for 3 days, walking around with a dress, still lifting it up, but and like 3 days later, "Get down! Get down!" I said, "What happened?" She said, "They grew back." You can't fix crazy. You can't, think of the world you're living in. You can't fix crazy. I'm in the parking lot in Walmart. I'm walking around. I walk around 3 miles every day trying to stay above ground. I got 2 grandsons. One's a genius. The other one might make it to the major leagues. And this guy's there. He locked his keys in his car and thought I could help him, and I can't. And he said, well, at least I'm in a safe place. I said, "Yeah, there are places where your car would be stolen, you'd be mugged. I'm a political researcher, I know." He said, "What do you research?" "Kennedy assassination." He said, "My wife thinks I'm crazy, but I think JFK is still alive." And I said, he'd be close to 110 years old. He said, "Oh, they got all kinds of medical stuff today." You can't fix stupid either. Okay? Let's see what else I should throw in. And then you can't fix brainwashing. My daughter's 45 now, but when she was a little girl, she was taught the Pledge of Allegiance. "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to Richard Stans." And I said, "Who's Richard Stans?" She goes, I don't know. So already, the kid's 5 and they're already brainwashing her, "Oh, Richard Stans." Anyway, I don't know how you beat that. In school, I had about 25 mystery and horror stories published, and one of them was about Plymouth Plantation in Plymouth. And I'd go there, and it was amazing how good those actors are pretending to be pilgrims. Even had the accents, and they knew all about old England and that. And think English people were there going, "Geez, these people are really good, the pilgrims." And I wrote a story about the wax museum no longer there, and I was basically saying that the people at the Plymouth Plantation the reason why they were so good is because they're ghosts, okay? And I took my daughter on the Mayflower, and in the wax museum there was a young Francis Billington. He almost blew up the Mayflower with fireworks next to a powder keg. And we're on the Mayflower, and Mrs. Billington is on the Mayflower, and Mr. Billington is a drunk in the stockades. And I said, I wrote a story about your son and your husband. And she goes, now why would you want to be writing about your poor husband and his drinking? They really get it down. And my daughter's like, so I'm telling this in class, and I'm forgetting the names of the teachers I taught for 40 years. But I don't forget Sharon Del Greco. And she put her hand up and said, Mr. Tatro. I said, yes, Sharon. She said, was it the real Mrs. Billington? I said, she'd be 400 years old. She said, I know. So, anyway, I think you get the idea. I did the half glass, half full thing, and I wrote a little poem years ago. It's called Changes. It says, things going right are very bad. You forget your role, pessimist. Then the logs turn mildew in the middle of the stream, and the trip off the falls is twice as high. It is foolish to be an optimist, because if things go right, you expected them to. And if things go bad, you're miserable, twice as miserable. If you're a pessimist and you expect everything to go wrong, when things go right, you're twice as happy as the optimist. And if it doesn't go your way, you're okay. Just kind of perspective on things. Don't be a cynic, because real cynics kill themselves. Anyone who kills himself, they were sincere. They saw absolutely no goddamn hope. And that's it, poof, I'm out of here. Okay. Since the beginning of mankind, 70 billion people have died. And we're all going to leave, especially this crew. Okay? You got 5 students, and of course they could get run over by buses at any time, or take opiums or whatever the hell they're doing. And again, trying to teach this, I hear people saying, we got to get the youth involved and so forth. I remember when the people saying, Harry Livingston, my book's going to blow the case wide open. Okay, Harry. And he used to end his emails with world's greatest writer. Forget Twain, Poe, Shakespeare, Harry's the world's greatest writer. And when in school, like the kids would come into me and say, did you hear that great new song by Guns N' Roses called Pretty Woman? I don't know. There was a guy named Roy Orbison. Who? A couple of years ago, Paul McCartney made a couple of songs with Kanye, Def Con West there, and they sucked. But the black hip-hop fans were saying, this Paul McCartney's going to blow up. He's going to become famous. Okay. And one time, when Clinton's mistress, Jennifer Flowers, came out, and the minute I saw her, I went, oh, he's guilty. That's it. That's right up there with Stella Stevens and St. John Hunt. That was a 10. And even George Bush had a woman named Jennifer McFarland. She was as ugly as Barbara, but if you set your sights low enough, there's somebody for you. And the kids in school would say to me, how come these presidents and presidents all have mistresses? And I said, well, the women are, they're enamored by the power, the fame. Some of them are gold diggers. And for the men, they may love their wives, but how do you push Marilyn Monroe away if she's hitting on you? And my kids said, who's Marilyn Monroe? Now, with all that negativity that we've lost, there's no hope. It's 59 years old. 9/11's an inside job. Trust me, I could go in for that for an hour. Osama bin Laden had nothing to do with that thing. You're talking Rumsfeld, Cheney, Pentagon people, and a little bit of Bush, because he wasn't too sharp. And I can go on for hours about that. But that's becoming ancient history, okay? Now, with that in mind, let me finish this, and then I'm going to go into meat and potatoes. And I got a few quotes. My job, here's what you have to do. Leave a legacy of truth. Promote critical thinking. Then and there, crimes of then and there do tie to crimes in here of now. And I've written chapters in my manuscript about links between the businesses involved in Kennedy's killing and their links to RFK, MLK, Watergate, savings and loan, Iran-Contra, and even 9/11. Okay? You promote critical thinking. Keep your own mind mentally alert and educated. plant seeds. A woman down here who's petrified to talk, she knows plenty, and she's always afraid of getting killed. And she said, you're the most dangerous of all. I said, why that? She said, you're a teacher and you plant seeds, okay? You got to be satisfied with Pyrrhic victories. When we made the guilty men and exposed Lyndon Johnson, a couple of hundred people went down to the LBJ library with signs, burn this place to the ground. Well, they didn't, but at least they were thinking about it. And they, it's a Pyrrhic victory. Keep them a little bit honest, self-pride. When I'm gone, I'm going to be able to say, I tried. When there were teachers in my school who would badmouth me, backstab me, all through the 60s. And then Nixon came along and Watergate, and all of a sudden someone goes, son of a bitch, that Tatro was right. If this guy's lying, they must have been lying back then. And some of them came up to me and apologized in front of other teachers. Richard Nixon gave me credibility. And then there's self-therapy, that kind of a thing. And then another little thing here is when Posner and Bugliosi and Max Holland and the trolls, and they say Oswald did it, and they put it on the internet and all that, they don't realize they keep it alive. They keep it alive even though they don't realize it. Bugliosi's on TV, and when other people are going, screw him, I'm going to get my books out again. They keep the thing alive. Anyway, okay. Couple of quotes, and then I'm going to get to it. Let me see here. Some of these I've done before, and some of them I got brand new. The one that's really new at the top is beautiful. Nothing can be said about politics that has not already been said about hemorrhoids. Okay. A politician is a fellow who will lay down your life for his country. Okay? And this is the real positive one. The Kennedy assassination was the end of faith in government. And so it's up to the little man to fight the odds. Davy Crockett, Sisyphus pushing his rock. Someone has to keep fighting the odds, even though you know the chances are that you're never going to get a resolution to what you're fighting for. You have to fight for it anyway. Just the principle of justice, just the principles of American democracy. Don't give up. Keep fighting. That's the last thing I say in The Guilty Men in 2003. And that's what we have to do. Okay, I found this year. Those, because it's a parody of an old phrase, those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. Yet those who do study history are doomed to stand by helplessly while everyone else repeats it. That's what you are. You're watching the deplorables. He didn't say pussy. That's fake news. It's on tape, lady. Nope, he didn't say it. Okay. From Jonathan Swift, I used to teach Gulliver's Travels. Laws are like cobwebs, which may catch small flies, but let wasps and hornets get through. Okay? When all is said and done, more is said than done. In a short time, this will be a long time ago. It's not paranoid if you're right. And then one last one, and this is one of the things, kind of one of those things that make you go, There are two phrases that really run life. Look before you leap, and he who hesitates is lost. And depending upon which one you use at which time you're involved, you either become a great success or you're screwed. Think about it, right? Okay. I'll tell one more anecdote, and my time's up. I didn't even talk about general dynamics, but I'll do the best I can. I think I'm going to put this in Garrison Magazine, and I should mention that. A lot of you are, there are a lot of new people in here. There's a new magazine out. It's only had about 10 issues. It's like the size of the old geography books we used to have. It's called Garrison Magazine. And it covers a lot of politics, and some of it, he's got one in his hands here, Jim from the Marines here, okay? He's got an article in there. I made him famous. He sent it to me, and I made sure it got in there. Garrison Magazine. And I wasn't in the first issue, but I have a Johnson poem and a Nixon poem, and two of them, and I've written an article in every one since a huge one on Ruby, one on Earl Ruby, whom I knew personally, a huge one on, they were talking about the rifle. I wrote one on Lee Harvey Oswald's unresolved pile, one on a bounty hunter who trained Oswald and Ruby to shoot. I just did one on LBJ and the Silver Star, phony medal that he didn't deserve. And this thing tonight is going to be in the next one. So I recommend Garrison Magazine. Just Google it, you can find it. I'll tell one more thing and then I'll get to the thing and we'll see how it goes. Years ago, I'd be sued today for this. I taught a course on the effectiveness and ineffectiveness of communication. I used to do all kinds of things. I would put 6 kids out in the hallway and I'd have 3 different colas, RC Cola, Coca-Cola, and Stop and Shop Cola. And I would put Coca-Cola in all 3 glasses, bring the kid in and say, okay, taste them and tell me which one's different. And I did it for 20 years, and 5 out of every 6 kids would pick one of them and say, this is sweeter, more carbonation, those are flat, and so forth. And then as they saw me setting up for the next kid, they'd realize I'm putting the same cola in all 3 cups. And it's like, oh shit, I'm an idiot. And the others are going, whoa! So you can brainwash people, you can condition them, even on a simple thing like that. But I used to do all kinds of things. I would give them a lifesaver, and they had to close their eyes, and I used to get those mango ones, the fruity ones, different, banana and this kind of thing. And I said, okay, tell me what it is you're tasting. They couldn't do it. If they looked at it, oh, that's banana. Oh, that's orange. No. They went, I've tasted this before. I have no damn idea what it is. So I used to do all kinds. And the big one was I had an hour and a half class. And if you had 30 kids, you'd blindfold 15 of them. And the other kid had to take the kid and guide him. I didn't just take them through the school corridors. I took them outside, through bushes. I took them to the playground, up and down the slides, for a half an hour. They had trouble getting over curbs. And then we'd bring them back and reverse it. Like if a kid whacked his head, you son of a bitch, and you're like, okay, my turn. And then we'd get in a circle and discuss it. And they'd say, I heard things I wouldn't normally hear. I smelled things. I had a hell of a time getting over a curb. It was 2 inches high, and I couldn't get over it. And they were talking about how grateful they were. And one year, I had a kid who never talked. He wasn't a deaf mute. He wasn't Ed Hoffman. He just introvert. And in a circle, he said, I got something to say. And everybody went, whoa. He can talk. And he said, my sister's blind, and I've resented her my whole life. And my mother and father have catered to her, and I always felt like a second-class citizen in my own house. And I just went through this for half an hour, and I am totally embarrassed. I owe them all an apology. Well, you can imagine what that did to that class. And of course, I was able to use that every year I did it, So there is power in that kind of stuff. Okay, I guess it's time to talk about the Kennedy assassination. Time's up. Yep, could be. I don't know. How much time did it take? I felt I needed to, as some of them have said to me, I said, well, I want to do a shtick. And they said, oh, we need a shtick. We need a shtick. And anyway, let's see how it goes here. Let me see how I can get this started. In terms of the Texas axis of the Kennedy assassination, most of the attention is applied to the Bobby Baker scandal and the Billy Saul Esty scandal. And I knew Billy Saul. I was at his home years ago. He had a little chihuahua, nasty little thing. I said, Billy, what's the name of the dog? He said, Lady Bird. Anyway, but the TFX scandal, and it does link to the Bobby Baker scandal, as you'll see. The TFX scandal was just as important. It just doesn't have the long-ranging notification and attention that the other two still have. So we want to go into it. Basically, what it came down to is the TFX was a fighter plane, and it was a contract worth $6.5 billion, the largest contract in military history. And the generals and admirals they know what they're talking about in terms of planes, and they said, Boeing has the best design for the least amount of money in Seattle. And the Kennedy administration, under Robert McNamara and Roswell Gilpatrick, Deputy Defense Secretary, gave it to General Dynamics in Texas. And the generals were not consulted, and they were aghast. And one of them was Curtis LeMay, and it might have been one of the reasons why he participates in the murder of Kennedy. He had a motive, and I'm throwing this out now. He was up for a new extension to his contract. He was supposed to get 2 years, it's routine. He only got 1. So that made him doubly pissed. So you have to kind of think about that when I know people say he was at the autopsy, even though he denied being there. Just a thought, food for thought. At any rate, they gave it to General Dynamics. Let me whip through a few pages here. This is really going to be hard to do in terms of things here. The people that are really responsible for this, Robert McNamara, Roswell Kilpatrick, the Secretary of the Air Force, Eugene Zuckert, and the Secretary of the Navy, Fred Korth. And Fred Korth is one of the great scumbags in American history. Very close to Johnson, and resigned from his position a month before Kennedy's murder. Yet he shows up at Johnson's White House the night of November 22nd, 1963. Okay? So let's see what I can do here. Now, Fred Korth, he's friends with the CEO of General Dynamics. He's friends with Roswell Kilpatrick, who used to be in General Dynamics. Then he becomes a member of the law firm that represents General Dynamics. You see a little conflict of interest already. Okay, Fred Korth is in here. He gave a $40,000 loan from his Continental National Bank in Fort Worth to General Dynamics, and he owed $160,000 stock in his bank. So he has every reason to give it to General Dynamics, no matter what the generals want. If I kind of quote a couple of people here. Hold on. I got so much to do here. I got such great stuff. See if I can find the quote here. All right, we got that. Let me go to 9. Bear with me. It'll be worth it. Where I want to go here. Now, what Korth was doing is he's Secretary of the Navy, and he's getting people to deposit money in his Continental National Bank using Secretary of the Navy stationery. You can't do that. And that's what ended his career. He had to resign once it finally came out. And he kept saying the letters were trivial and of no consequence. Well, then what did he resign for? Okay? What's he resigning for? It's amazing in terms of that kind of thing. Let me see, where else we want to go. The senators, Senator Karl Munt and John McClellan, are calling him a scumbag in euphemistic terms. He finally had to resign. And then he does an oral history in 1966, and he's trying to say it's minimal. Now, what happened is Seth Cantor, and some of you may remember Seth Cantor. We'll get that in a minute. But Seth Cantor, he worked for the Fort Worth Press newspaper, and on October 24th, he wrote an article saying that General Dynamics is going to get the contract. But they didn't give the contract to General Dynamics until a month later, November 24th. And he said it was in the bag. Well, Senator John McClellan on the subcommittee said, well, that would be corrupt. That would be crooked. And so they subpoenaed these people. And McNamara and Zuckert and Korth said, no, it was only done a few days before. And then they bring in Mr. Cantor. And they're saying, were you mistaken? And he's saying, well, what happened? They got it, didn't they? Well, what's your source? And he said, well, I can't give you my sources. And he's saying, finally, he admitted 2 high echelon government employees told him a month before it was in the bag. All right? Now, I'd like to quote McNamara if I can find it here without too much trouble. Hold on. My problem is I'm blind on top of everything else here. Let's see. Where's my little page of quotes? All right, page 15, let's see. It's not easy to do. All right. This is McClellan. Let me ask you a question this way, because you say that you have problems in trying to conceal the identity of your source, and that is what you are trying to do. But Mr. Cantor, we have problems too, because it is obvious from your newspaper story and from your sworn testimony before this committee that somebody has lied to the American public in connection with the biggest contract that any government has ever awarded to any contractor in the history of the world. This is big business. Either your story is a falsification, or your testimony before this committee under oath has been highly perjurious, which doesn't exist, but on this issue. Now, could you help us with that? And Cantor's going, no, I can't. I've told you what I'm going to tell you, all right? And he says, do you still believe that what you were told is true? And he's saying, they got the contract, didn't they? Of course I'm going to stand by it. They told the truth. And he said, then you can appreciate that if your story has, as you wrote it, is true, it conflicts with the sworn testimony that we have received here to date, and as contended by the Defense Department, that no such decision has been made at that time, and that no decision was made by it until the 4th round before the source selection board, in only a few days. Actually, I think they contend that before the decision was, you recognize that? Cantor goes, yes, I do. I know they're lying. Those assholes committed perjury. Do you understand? You know, and it just goes on. They're frustrated as hell. They want him to say everything's okay, and he can't. He's right. Now, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, but there's a woman named Sarah McClendon, and a journalist for 8 presidents, and she drove them all crazy. Little old lady, what about this? What about that? You know, drove them all crazy. And she wrote her memoirs, and she knew Bobby Baker, and she knew his vending machine buddy, Ralph Hill. Now, those two guys were buddies at the time, but then Baker tried to screw Ralph Hill out of the business, and Hill civil suit, and that exploded the Bobby Baker scandal and ended up with Baker going to jail. And Ralph Hill tells McClendon that Bobby knew all the Pentagon people in the contract business, and he was saying to Ralph, my vending machine, or our vending machine, is going to make a bundle in Fort Worth because General Dynamics is going to get the contract. And she was saying this 2 months before. She's got another month ahead of Cantor. So it's obvious. The thing was in the bag. All right? All right. With that in mind, give me a second here. Where do we go from there? All right. Let's see. Okay. Let's see here, where do I want to go now? Now, in the meantime, before this all business is going on, Henry Crown, who is the major stockholder of General Dynamics and the godfather of the Chicago mob, and he's in business with Jake Avi, who runs Chicago, and Jake Avi's boys are fellows like Dave Patrick, Dave Yaris, Lenny Patrick, Willie Block, and Jack Ruby. Okay? And they're in Washington, and they're lobbying all the people in Washington, buttonholing Washington politicians. Johnson's doing it, okay? And they're greasing the wheels to get General Dynamics the contract. So it's pretty obvious what's going on here. Okay. By the way, Seth Cantor was the one who said he saw Jack Ruby at Parkland Hospital after the assassination. Warren Commission said he's mistaken. He knew the guy for years. He said, Jack said hi, said to him, should I close my club? They talked, and the Warren Commission said he's mistaken. He knew the guy, and he talked to the guy. And there are 2 other witnesses who saw him and believe they saw him, Wilma Tice and Roy Stamps. They saw Ruby, and the Warren Commission said he's mistaken. Then Burt Griffin, one of the Warren Commission members, 20 years later said, we were wrong. Well, that doesn't give us any comfort because they used it to, they didn't want Ruby at the hospital planting bullet. They don't want him there. So they just buried Cantor. So he's being accused of being a liar twice, and he's right both times. Okay. Now, the reason is, what motives could you have for killing Kennedy and before killing him and giving this contract to them? And just look at the electoral college votes. For starters, Texas has 45. The partner of General Dynamics was Grumman and that was New York, so there's 24. Meanwhile, Illinois, with Henry Crown running it, that's another 27 electoral votes. Boeing's in Seattle, Washington. Washington has 9, and if they had gotten the contract, the building would have been in Kansas, and they're 8. So it was 96 to 17. So there's a basic political vote reason to give it to General Dynamics. Now, let's see where I want to go. 21. Let's see here. When the press found out about this business, P.S. Salinger said, if we were going to go and be in a position of investigating every unauthorized leak to the press, it would require virtually a task force following reporters around town. So he just pivoted. JFK, RFK, P.S. Salinger, they're all backing McNamara and Kilpatrick, even though it's wrong. So the question is why? We will get to that, okay? Because Kennedy is being blackmailed, all right? Which might be part of that Fort Worth speech he gave, ass-kissing the warriors in Texas. All right, let me see where I want to go now. Okay, what I want to try to do here is I'm going to talk about the people directly connected to General Dynamics. First, we start with Henry Crown. He's the chairman and the major stockholder of General Dynamics. He's the godfather of the mob. He's a close friend of Hoover's. He was involved in all kinds of crooked deals, and the FBI files are purged of anything dealing with Crown because he was a friend of Hoover's. He installed a man named Patrick Hoy as vice president of General Dynamics. Hoy was eventually convicted of stock frauds and went to jail for a couple of years. So you got 2 crooks right off the bat at the top, okay? When they got the contract in December of '63, Congressman Jim Wright had a big party at General Dynamics with Lyndon Johnson there. He's calling Lyndon Johnson the greatest Texan of them all. And it kind of gives you the idea. Now, Jim Wright was House Speaker, and he was kicked out for conflicts of interest with all kinds of money scams. He made some skinny book, and he was getting all kinds of money that he shouldn't have gotten, and the Congress was about to throw him out when he resigned. So again, crooks, Crown, Hoy, Wright, Johnson, and anyone. There are a couple of researchers in the other conferences who say there was no scandal. John Kennedy walks on water. Robert McNamara walks on water. Yeah, well, it's polluted water. Okay. Let's see. Oh my God, I haven't even started. All right, let me see if I can jump. Let me just jump around here. We talked about Sidney Korshak. I could go on forever. Sidney Korshak his partner was Joe Glazer, Associated Booking Corporation, 3rd largest booking thing. They had Barbra Streisand, Creedence Clearwater, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington. Joe Glazer, his partner, was a pedophile, having sex with 13-year-olds and getting them pregnant. Eventually, Korshak took over. But Ruby visited him when he was making all those phone calls, and this guy just called Ruby a whack job because that you want to make that. And the FBI buys everything he says. So Korshak is involved in all kinds of things here. Let's see. The number 1 lawyer besides Korshak is Albert Jenner. Albert Jenner did everything in his business. He was a mob lawyer. He frames Oswald with all of it. In fact, the key thing is Oswald got a job. Oswald was being offered a job by a Robert Adams from the Texas Employment Commission as a cargo handler for a Trans Am company. He was going to get $310 a month. It was a permanent job, and they were looking for 12 people. He called Mrs. Payne. Mrs. Payne said, he's not here. The next day he called to see, and she said, oh, he's got a job at the Texas school, he's getting $1.25. It's like $100 less, and it's not permanent. They had to have him, Mrs. Payne, who's part of this whole thing. They got to keep him in the depository so they can frame him. Now, Albert Jenner asks her all about this. She pretends she knows really nothing about it. Then she says, oh, I remember, Lee told me that didn't work out. She's lying. Lee Harvey Oswald never told her, and he didn't even know about that other job. And Jenner lets it go. So it gives you an idea. Here he is, the number 1 lawyer for General Dynamics, framing Oswald for the murder of President Kennedy. All right, let's see what else I can throw in here. Then this Gilpatrick, he has to go before the Senate committee, and it's amazing. There was a plane, there was a contract before the General Dynamics one. The X-22, it was a plane, it was built like a helicopter, but it could fly like a plane. And it was only $15 million, and they gave it to, it was supposed to give it, the generals and admirals wanted to go to Douglas Aircraft, and they gave it to Bell Helicopter. And they asked him, why did you do that? And he said, well, Fred Korth, who had been director of Bell Helicopter, said that they were good. And he said, yeah, but he was director of Bell Helicopter. He has a conflict of interest. Oh, I wasn't asking him as the former director of Bell. I was asking him as a personal opinion. You know, your senators are going, you're full of shit, you know? Now, Bell Helicopter, since I've only got a few minutes here, Bell Helicopter is run by a guy named Larry Bell. And the inventor of the helicopter is Arthur Young. And he gives Lyndon Johnson one of his loans a helicopter to Johnson when he's running for Senate in 1948 in Texas. And he loans his pilot, Joe Mashman, okay? Arthur Young has a stepson. It's Michael Payne, Ruth Payne's husband. And it just goes from there. Now, I'm running out of time, so I can't do everything I want to do. But let me throw in another thing. There's a Mason Langford that Gary Shaw talked about. He was not only a special agent for the Navy, but he was also the president of the local Firefighters Association in Tarrant County. Now that night, the night before the assassination, 9 Secret Service agents got shit-faced. They were at the Fort Worth Club, had drinks, and then they went to the cellar, Pat Kirkwood's cellar. Oswald used to work at the cellar in San Antonio. Pat Kirkwood's father hung around with Sam Rayburn, Lyndon Johnson, H.L. Hunt, Clint Murchison, okay? The manager of the cellar said those men were bombed, and by the way, we got a call from the White House saying, don't say they were drunk. They've suffered enough. So you got Johnson trying to cover it up. Now, Clint Hill, actually, there's a YouTube video of Clint Hill saying that was a disgrace what those men did. They were there some of them were there to 5 in the morning. That's a disgrace. And they were laughing about how 2 firemen were protecting Kennedy at the hotel. Well, it's Langford who put the firemen there. And he's right very close to Secret Service agent Mike Howard, whose whereabouts on November 22nd is still unknown. And he was with Johnson when he died. The last thing Lyndon Johnson said when he died was, get Mike, okay? He's still alive, okay? It's an endless. Langford and Howard kept Marina and Marguerite isolated in the inn of the Six Flags away from the FBI and everybody but the Secret Service. And you can know that that's corrupt because Palomaro will go into details for that. Anyway, Clint Hill did a YouTube video and he said, those 9 men were a disgrace. They were stupid, irresponsible, reckless. Then you find out he was one of the 9 and left at 2:45. Said he didn't drink. He still violated curfew. He's out to 2:45. Okay, pistol. Let's see what else I can do with the 2 minutes I got here. I knew I couldn't do this. One other thing. And of course, Lady Bird bought all kinds of stock in the Bell helicopter. They made millions off the helicopters that crashed in Vietnam. He made sure that Bell got the Vietnam War contracts, made, I think they were like $600 million by 1969. In the White House, Lyndon Johnson's Oval Office, he had a Bell helicopter chair behind his desk. How's that for lack of empathy? Think about that, called marking his territory. All right? When this guy Glazer met with Ruby about the booking business, Ruby told all the mafia people that he was calling all over the country, the Traficanti, Marcello, Hoffa people, that he was having trouble with the American Guild of Variety Artists, and that the local chapter was trying to make him pay for amateur night people. And the AGVEA was a mafia organization. It was a dues-paying thing. The guy who ran it was James Henry Dolan, a complete mafia crook. I know his son personally, okay? He was friends with Ruby, so it was all a lie. And every one of these mafia guys used the same thing. It's called coordinated perjury. James Henry Dolan, here we go. James Henry Dolan was close friends with Nofia Pecora. Pecora was the #1 lieutenant under Carlos Marcello, okay? And he had an underling under him named Emile Bruno. And Bruno bailed Oswald out of jail in New Orleans after his fight in August of 63. You can't make that crap up. I am barely touching the surface of what I know. Barely touching it. Okay. Okay. Do what I can here. I think there are certain things you have to really get across here. Because this is a tape recording in the JFK Library, October 16th, 1963, between JFK and McNamara. Now, Fred Course says that even after he resigned, JFK was strictly behind him, and but there's a tape recording between JFK and McNamara, and he was concerned about Court's letters becoming a problem. And McNamara says, we're cleaning out all his files and limiting what's going to come out. So they were lying, okay? Now I get to since I only have a few minutes, I'll try to get this in. One of the more important people in this thing is Marguerite Oswald. She's been portrayed as this lunatic, but I can't go into it. But if you read Garrison magazines, she names all kinds of people she believes are involved in the Kennedy assassination. Mike Howard is one of them, okay? But she names at least a dozen men, and they are all guilty in different aspects. I just don't have time to go through them all. But I was friendly with Marina, and they didn't get along after the assassination. And Marina said to me on the phone, Marguerite was temperamental, but not stupid. Okay, so they've portrayed here through history as this bozo. And she was a rude, brash, irritating woman. But she was right about a lot of things. Now, what we get down to is, in August of 1962, JFK had a mistress named Judith Campbell Exner, was mentioned by Gary earlier. And the FBI, Hoover had surveillance. He had a bug on her phone. The mob had a bug on her phone. And two young men broke into her apartment, and apparently, we don't know for sure, put a bug. Billy Saul Estes said when they opened up the phone and put a bug, they saw the other two bugs there. He said, I learned that when I was in prison in Leavenworth from Vito Genovese. So you got to figure it's probably true. At any rate, their car was out front. The FBI agent gets the license plate. The license plate belongs to I.B. Hale. He's the head of security for General Dynamics. It's over. Kennedy's blackmailed. If he doesn't give the contract to General Dynamics, they're going to blow him out of the water. Okay? I.B. Hale was an ex-FBI agent. Hoover was very fond of him. He never informed Judith Campbell that her house had been broken in. He never arrested the two kids. Okay? Then Bobby and Billy Hale, Bobby Hale marries Kathleen Conley, John Conley's daughter, and blows her head off with a shotgun because she's pregnant. But they say it was a suicide pact, and they got away with it. It's endless. I.B. Hale was at Woodrow Wilson High School in the 1930s. He was a Hall of Fame football player. Who else went to school with him? A freshman on the football team was Malcolm Wallace. And those of you who don't know it, he's considered one of the suspects of killing John Kennedy. He also went to school with Joe Campisi, and some of you ate at his restaurant the other night, major mob guy, and R.D. Matthews, a major mob guy, probably the biggest bookie in the city, probably the third most powerful guy, close to Ruby. He and Ruby are the ones that go down to Dealey Plaza that morning to look at the fireworks. And when Charles Harrelson was arrested for killing the federal judge, whom I don't think he killed, he had R.D. Matthews' business card on him. They all knew each other. It's just endless. Any rate, how do I go from there? When Kennedy's at the Hotel Texas, a guy named Jack Williams ran the Chevrolet dealer there. They wanted black Impalas for the trip from Carswell Base to the Hotel Texas. So they went to this guy, Jack Williams, the Chevrolet owner. He was friends with Jim Wright, the congressman, Lyndon Johnson, and John Conley. So he supplied the black Impalas. But he asked, can my 14-year-old son meet John Kennedy? So that morning, before they're headed to Dallas, the kid meets Jackie and JFK. Then he's crying that night later on because he's killed. Who brought them together? I.B. Hale. I.B. Hale, the guy whose kid's broken at Judith Camp, he's setting up this kid to meet JFK in person. You gotta be shitting me. You gotta be kidding me that that's going on. Okay? Now, the head of the FBI in Dallas was Gordon Shanklin, a complete crook. Henry Wade was a complete crook. Okay? Will Fritz, chief of homicide, close friend of Clinton Murchison's. They had everything covered. Micromanagement, top to bottom, okay? I became friendly with the next chief of the FBI, Ted Gunderson. And he told me he got a letter from I.B. Hale's sister. And she swore my brother helped set up the motorcade route of right-angle turns at 11 miles an hour. She also believed that he was murdered, that the pills she found in his cabinet were larger than the ones that he was used to. I didn't even get to Fred Korth and all the stuff he was involved with. But at age 60, he began dating the 80-year-old heiress to the post-cereal General Foods thing. Okay. And he became the executor of her will and the executive of her estate. It was called Cedar Lake Estates. And in 1980, she wanted to leave the estate to the government so they could be used as a winter White House for presidents and for diplomats. But they didn't use it. The upkeep was so expensive, they gave it back to the estate. So they eventually sold it in 1985 for $5 million plus $3 million more for all the antiques to a fellow named Donald Trump, Mar-a-Lago. Okay? His Fred Korth's stepson is Beto O'Rourke. Okay? That's right, step-grandson, thank you. My first mistake of the year. His daughter, her middle name was Sansom. And there was another guy whose middle name was Sansom. And it was checked out by a genealogist. And Fred Korth, Secretary of the Navy, the guy that ran the Texas School Book Depository, Roy Truly, he implicates Oswald in many ways in this. They're cousins. Okay? I tried to do the best I could of, it's just on and on here. But I think that's probably a good place to try to hang it up, but I did the best I could. Thank you. I suggest that you buy Garrison. It'll be in the next issue. It'll all be there. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ed Tatro.
Thank you.
And the truth is, and I say this quite respectfully, if we had another 48 hours, he'd still have enough material. Seriously, he does. He's a wealth of experience and knowledge about the JFK assassination, a whole bunch of other things too. So Ed, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now I'm going to share a story with you. It's not true, but I want to tell it to you anyway. David and I were talking about hiring an entertainer, but we couldn't afford one, so we brought you up. And we got the best part of the deal because you were great. Thank you, Ed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to go ahead and wrap up our conference and close it up. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for taking part. I want to thank you for your attention throughout the weekend. I want to thank you for continuing your interest in a very important topic. And I'm going to encourage you to take home what you've heard. Take home what you've seen. Share it with your family. Share it with your friends. Hopefully inspire some interest in the people that you know and love so that we can keep this going. Next year will be the 60th anniversary of JFK's assassination, and we hope there's going to still be enough interest to be able to put on a conference next year. And with your love and with your support, we'll be able to do it, and I believe we will, because this one turned out so amazing. And with that, I want to thank David Denton for him stepping up as JFK Historical Group. I want to thank Casey and David and who am I forgetting? Brian, sorry, with the JFK, Project JFK, and also Judy and the rest of the board with the JFK Assassination Conference. Without all of them coming together, this would not have been possible. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you. I'm going to say good night. We will have a little gathering tomorrow with some of the speakers. If you're interested, come. We'll just have a little informal conversation out in the hallways. Thank you. Love you. Safe travels back to where you came from. And hopefully we'll see you next year.